My name is Mavis Mackenzie Cecil. I'm Joint Head of Circular Economy Strategy at DEFRA. And I'm just going to set the scene with a couple of short slides to talk about what we have been up to working across government and with the Circular Economy Task Force over the last several months to kind of set the scene for the discussion that we're going to have today. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you very much. So firstly, I just wanted to welcome Circular Economy Task Force members who are on the call. So I think we've got Andrew and Kath will be joining us a little bit later on in the session as well. You'll hear more from them when we get to some of the sector roadmaps, but thank you very much, Andrew and Kath, for joining us today. In terms of what we have been up to over the last few months, so the Circular Economy Task Force was set up in November last year, and we have been working in a very kind of iterative and co-creative way between government, the task force, and external stakeholders such as yourselves over the last several months to really kind of understand the issues and the challenges in transitioning to a circular economy, and particularly doing that through the lens of 6 sectors. So we're currently in that process of iterating and articulating and really kind of keen to capture your feedback now as we go through this call today to help us with some of the kind of, particularly some of the areas where we think that we will be interested to hear more from you and how we shape that, how we frame that. We're currently planning to publish the strategy as a green paper, so for consultation in the autumn of this year. So that's very soon, it being September. That's obviously subject to, getting a slot and whatever to do so. But in terms of the material, so in terms of the documents, we are on track to achieve that. And so we're at quite a late stage in the drafting process for the green paper. That's obviously not the end of the line because it's a consultation, and we'll be coming back next year with a white paper, so the final strategy. And yeah, just really keen to use this call today to make sure that we are framing things like consultation questions in the right way and framing our narrative and our language and that sort of thing in a way that really kind of lands and speaks to you guys, because we know that lots of you will be wanting to respond to the consultation. I'm just going to go to the next slide and briefly just recap why we're kind of looking at this stuff. So a transition to a circular economy was included in the Labour Party's manifesto, and now that they are in government, that is a kind of commitment and a priority that we have been pursuing. This work is being led out of DEFRA, but it's really a collaboration across a number of government departments and a number of ministers as well, driving this agenda forward across government. We are interested in it for a whole range of reasons. So the potential to boost economic growth and particularly driving kind of efficiency, the opportunity to reduce our kind of reliance on raw materials that are increasingly scarce or subject to kind of supply chain disruption through providing more circular loops around those sorts of materials within the economy. There's some great environmental reasons, obviously, for pursuing a circular economy, so protecting the environment, regenerating nature, and also kind of the carbon implications, the carbon reductions inherent in a circular economy. And finally, really interested in the opportunities that things like circular business models and the kind of connections and local impacts that this can have for consumers and reducing kind of cost of living and making things easier for citizens. I'll move on to the next slide and just quickly set out kind of the scope of what we're looking at and how we're doing things. So we're looking at this as a circular economy strategy for England. So this is a sort of devolved area, although there are some strands, obviously, of an economy-wide transition that are reserved, and we're working very closely with devolved colleagues to make sure that we've got kind of visibility and consistency across the 4 nations where that's appropriate and relevant to do so. But the strategy is going to set out the government's overarching vision for the circular economy in England. It's going to set a course for measuring and kind of galvanizing action through measurable change in the circular economy, which may include targets. That will be something we want to kind of ask about in the consultation, I think. We are going to talk about economy-wide enablers, on which more shortly, to really underpin a transition to a circular economy in a sort of sector agnostic way. And that includes things like how we collaborate and deliver with industry and with local places, etc., as part of this transition. And then I think what a lot of you are here for is we have 6 sector-based roadmaps that will be included in the consultation on agri-food, built environment, textiles, transport, chemicals and plastics, and electricals, electronic equipment as well. So that's the scope of what we're looking at. It's very broad, and that's probably reflected by the fact that almost 150 of you have joined this call. So there's lots to get stuck into across the document, and we're really looking forward to hearing from you at the consultation stage as well as today. I'll just go on to the final slide. I think we've done a bit of jamming things together in the crosscuts to fit them on the slide there, but this is just a little recap of those sectors and those crosscuts or economy-wide enablers that we are looking at, which we'll dive into a little bit more detail. So over the course of today's session, we are going to go through this very, very briskly. We're really interested in your feedback and your thoughts around the questions that we pose. We know a lot of you have questions yourselves, but we're quite short on time, and at this stage in the game, we're primarily interested in your feedback. So we may not be able to answer all of your questions as we go through the session, and we're really here to hear from you, I suppose, rather than for you to hear from us, if that makes sense. We are going to be going through each of the sectors. First, we're going to do the crosscuts because we reckon most of you will be sort of interested in that because it cuts across everything, as the name suggests. And then we're going to go into the sectors. I'm just going to give you the timings, recap the timings, because if you do want to kind of leave, do some other things, and then come back because you're interested in a particular sector, please feel free to do so. We will stick really rigidly to the timings. So you will see us maybe shutting down discussion to move on to the next one to enable us to keep to these timings and make sure we get a fair chance to talk about each of the sectors as we go through. So in 15 minutes at 1:30, we will be going on to built environment. At 1:45, we'll be talking about agri-food. 2 o'clock will be chemicals and plastics. 2:15 is triple E. 2:30 textiles, and 2:45 is transport, and probably 1 minute somewhere sneaked in at the end to just wrap up as well. So I think that's all I was going to say in terms of the format and overarching piece, but just on, well, sort of the next slide, slide 8. Thank you for jumping back to slide 2. Did anyone have any questions about just how we're going to approach this and how we're going to cover things as we go through this session? So any kind of more processy things. There's a question on slides. We are not going to be sharing slides, but we will be publishing the consultation shortly, so you will see more of the detail then. If you do have any kind of specifics, you can pick up with us via email afterwards, and one of my team will pop our email address in the chat at some point shortly, now that lots of people have joined, and we'll be able to see that. So there'll be ability to come back to us if you did have any queries and questions as well. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up, so I think I might move us to the next bit, which I think I'm also leading on, so sorry if you get bored of me talking to you, but this is going to be a really quick counter through of actually probably a lot more than 6 things. We've had to ram them onto the slide in a way that would fit, but is maybe not in 6 individual things. But these are these kind of economy-wide enablers that we have been considering with the task force, and also in various other conversations with stakeholders over the last few months. A lot of these have really emerged from the discussions that we've had from you. And you can see on the slide, we've got a couple of questions that we're posing to you now on each of these themes, and we'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on them. I will leave you to do the reading of those questions yourselves, but what I will just cover now very quickly is just a little bit about what we mean by each of these sections to help situate your answers as we come to the questions in a couple of moments' time. So on global context plus data plus design plus standards, there's a lot rolled into that. We're just really conscious that a lot of countries, including the EU, which is not a country, but anyway, a lot of places internationally are pursuing a circular economy agenda. And this is a really international exercise. Supply chains are global. We are a trade reliant nation. And, there's strands of that in our objectives around supply chain resilience and seeking to do that, but also the opportunities, unlocking the opportunities that this kind of paradigm shift globally that's starting to emerge on circular economy kind of presents to us. And some of these things like data, design, and standards are the sorts of things that we're seeing emerging as a kind of internationally, value and international consistency, readability, and translatability, etc. So we'd be really interested in your thoughts on the questions there that we've got on the slide. Finance, innovation, investment, business support. That's another one that we are really kind of listening to you on. We've heard a lot of really helpful feedback from stakeholders over the last few months around this. And we know that this is really important to unlock a circular transition in England. So we're looking at business models really through phases, including investment and innovation, embedding circular practices, market formation, and then considering how this journey might differ for different types of businesses, so innovative startups, small businesses, and large enterprises. So yeah, on that one, keen to hear your thoughts when we get to that. On place, we really feel that a successful circular economy is not one size fits all, and a lot of it is about networks and bringing things together into a system. And a lot of that is really kind of a huge opportunity for quite unique and locally specific action. There's some really amazing opportunities and also really amazing examples emerging in local places and in regions around things like procurement, resource efficiency, industrial symbiosis, skills, social regeneration, all sorts of kind of things there. So we're interested in your thoughts around place, as we feel that's a really kind of key dimension for how this agenda is delivered and also how it's experienced, I guess, by people. Skills is something that has repeatedly come up in conversations that we've had with stakeholders as being really important, but actually we've not had much specificity come through. So if you've got any specifics on skills, on what you think is important and how we get to that, we'd be really, really interested in your thoughts on that. Governance is going to be really important. This is a really complicated agenda and cuts across all sorts of things, including, the sort of distinction between public sector, private sector, charity, civil society, academia. We've tried to bring a lot of this together through the task force model, but we're really interested in how we continue to embed this sort of collaboration going forward. So your thoughts on that would be really helpful too. And then finally, public procurement is something where, unusually government actually has quite a lot of levers to pull and quite a lot of power to influence. So it's something that we've been looking at really carefully. We're conscious that public procurement goes much wider than central government, goes into the local place agenda, hospitals, etc., etc., etc. And we're really interested in kind of a positive discussion and engagement across the span of public procurement, and interested in your thoughts on how we best support that, both from a public buyer perspective, but also from potential sellers into the public procurement market as well.